Hi, Mayette. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Alright, so here's your past life spread. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to where you were, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day with the relationship and the feeling involved, another important day, the death and lesson learned, and we'll get hints of time throughout. So all I'm going to do is relay to you the images and impressions that I'm getting, and your job is going to be to try to make connections where you can based on what we're going over here and your current life. And I'll try to help however I can too. Alright? So, let's start. So here we're going to start. This is the Asia card, which of course it encompasses a whole lot of land. What I can say right now is that even before I laid this out, I was seeing mountains. And then I put this card down and it's like, boom, there's that mountain. And it's like, okay, this is really interesting. So as I'm talking and what I'm seeing is this really large mountain. And it's nearby other mountains, but there's something particularly special about this one. Something about it being like almost like a sanctuary to you in this life that we're looking at. And I want to say that it feels like we're going towards, as far as like a continent or a country I should say goes, it's more like in the heart of where like the mainland. So it feels very much like we're looking at China, and it feels like we're looking at a region of China that is not heavily, what's the word, like not civilized, but like modern at all. Like this does not feel like modern times. It feels more like they are gearing up, almost like an industrial age-ish kind of feel, like they're just getting started towards working towards what we would consider modern civilization, if that makes sense. So what it feels like is, so okay, so what they're showing me is like it's a lot of like lands. There's a lot of this land, and I feel like you're working on land, and it feels like it's flat, and then but in the distance there are mountains almost surrounding it. So it's almost like I feel like your place mainly is like it's almost like a valley, but it's not like a vaulted valley. It's like mountains back here, and then all this land, and then maybe mountains further out that way, if that makes sense. So it doesn't feel like it's this like narrow valley. It feels like it's this like broad bit of land. Okay, so let me see. It's showing, it's almost like it would be part of what would be considered a major, like back in the day, like whatever the dynasty, like little kingdoms, like if there were little kingdoms in China, it would be like not the main area, it would be outside of it by almost like, it feels like it'd be like, oh, a couple of days ride to this place. Like, and I say ride because I feel like people walk or they ride in carts using animals at this point. There's no cars, it doesn't feel like there's any vehicles. Whereas maybe in other parts of the world, they're just getting started with vehicles, like in a normal sense. So actually what this feels like 19th century, or yeah, like it feels like the 19th century, maybe like the mid to the end of the 19th century-ish, in China, out in almost like no man's land kind of thing. So how you can be making connections already could be, you know, these kinds of like random things. Like, one, have you ever been what's it called, pulled to China? Like, have you ever been pulled towards China? Have you seen photos that have triggered you or made you emotional or made you feel like, oh, I've been there, or made you feel like, oh, I want to go there? Photos. Oh, okay, also like decor. You know, you might be someone that really likes Chinese type decor, the lettering, the art, the food, the culture, the language, you know, just like anything Chinese. And if not, that's fine, but those are just certain kinds of connections you could be making. On the other hand, what else you could be connecting with is the mountain itself. It feels like the mountain is very important, and it feels like a mountain, like, for example, some people are beach people, some people are mountain people. Like, I'm a mountain person. Like, I don't like the beach. You'd think everyone loves the beach, but some people are just different and they like certain things. So you might be someone that finds like what's the word, like sanctuary, or like it's therapeutic or whatever it is to go hiking in the mountains. The mountains, or even looking at mountains, might bring you a sense of calmness, serenity, relief, just enjoyment, just like emotional rest. And if not, that's fine, but that's just the kind of connection you could be making, because what our souls do a lot is, in one life, if they are working with something like daily, like let's say this person here is always like loves the mountains, your soul can come back and have a direct connection and still like mountains, or it can come back and have an indirect or opposite connection, and it could be like, okay, I'm done with mountains, I want to go see what this beach is all about, you know what I mean, or a river or whatever. So that's the kind of connection you could be making. It could be a direct connection or a complete opposite connection, just so you are aware of that. What it feels like here is, I was having a hard time picking up if this was a male or female life. And what comes through is that we're looking at a female life, but the reason why it feels like I had trouble with it is because, oh gosh, do you hear that airplane? God, that's loud. But the reason I was having trouble with the male and female thing is because this female we're looking at feels like she is toughened, and she is not a feminine fool, if that makes sense. Like, this is someone who is a hard worker. That's what I'm picking up here, is this really just hardened, strong female, and with like not masculine attributes, but you know, what's it called? You know, masculine. Maybe masculine is the right word, but it's more about like strength and resilience and competence and capable, and these really, really wonderful qualities, which, you know, I guess we say are masculine, but I mean, they do apply to the feminine too. So what you do with the majority of your time here is, this is the like hard labor-ish / slavery card, but this doesn't feel technically like it is definite slavery that we're looking at here, but it feels like servitude. So it is a type of slavery. It's like you have nowhere to go, where are you gonna go, where are you gonna live, where are you gonna eat, what money you're gonna use. It's like they keep you there, and they keep you like, just like basically you work for them. You work. It does feel like you're working the land. It feels like trying to see if it's like agriculture or if it's harvesting, but it just feels like you're working the land. It feels more like crops than anything. It feels like you work with a lot of people. It's almost like you're working with a whole entire town, that whatever regime is in charge, it's almost like the whole town is quote unquote employed by this regime. So it does feel a bit slavish. I mean, it does. It feels rather slavish, but it doesn't. It's not like you were sold to them. It's just that there's no other means by which you can live by, so you just keep working. So it's very slavish. Which, by the way, in your current life, if you're triggered by, you know, the diamond thing happening in Africa, like all these, you know, these slave situations happening across the globe for consumerism, basically, if that's something where you read about or you hear about or there's movies about it and it triggers you emotionally, that would stem from here. So keep that in mind as well. If you're someone that is very all about like fair trade and not using, you know, people like, what's it called, I'm at a loss for words, but like hard labor, kind of like you know, kids mining for precious stones, like that kind of thing. If that's like a trigger for you, it's because of what's happening here. And it feels also like it's almost like this is what you kind of grew up with, more or less. And if it didn't start in your childhood, it started like right at the cusp of puberty. It's like this is something you've been doing since you were very, very young. And they're putting me where you are, it feels like late 20s, maybe hitting 30 or so, that kind of thing. They're showing me a very petite, small woman, a little like tinted skin with hair coming, it's like pulled back, but you know, the hair would be like right past the shoulders. There's nothing luxurious about this life. There's nothing like beauty and cosmetics, and like those cares are out the door. Like that's the last thing you're thinking about, because it feels more about like survival and more about like your bonds with your kins people. And so in your current life, you could be someone who well, it's one of two ways again. So in your current life, you could be someone who, one, doesn't care about like being, you know, having pretty things and jewelry and adornments and you know, like pretty dresses or whatever, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing, like typical like girl stuff that girls like kind of thing. It could be that you think that's frivolous, and you focus on things that are just more like, oh, it's about the experience and the relationships, and that's, you know, all I care about. Oh, it could be like to the point where here it's almost like what we would call a tomboy. On the other hand, because this life was really hard and there was no materialism really involved at all, the only materialism I want to say would be like to have extra food. You know what I mean? So because of that, you could have come back in this life, your soul could have come back to experience what it's like to be able to afford fine things and nice things. And so you might be someone that really adores having a collection of things, like you might, you know, collect certain porcelains, things that someone like this would consider frivolous, but someone like you in your current life, because your soul already went through this hardship, would really love. Like you might be someone that really just loves having nice clothes, or you might like to decorate your house really prettily, or you might, you know, just like things that are like you just might really relish the extras in life. And that's not a bad thing, that's a great thing, you know. It's just if that speaks to you, it would come from this life where it's like there was bare minimum, like nothing here. This can also reflect in your current life as if you have a problem feeling worthy of anything. So if you have issues when it comes to worthiness, or if you're the one that like passes on the best of things because you feel like, oh, I'll take the, what's it called? There is this movie called The Joy Luck Club, if you've ever seen that. And the main character, the girl, she would always pass on the best pieces of meat or crab or whatever it was. She would always pass on the best pieces and always take like the like crappier pieces, letting others have the best pieces. And it was about, you know, her feeling of self-worth, like she wasn't worthy of the best, you know, finest grade quality of meat kind of thing. So if you have any issues with that in your life of self-worthiness, it could come from here. Even though you were a hard worker, there is always a constant thing where you're no better than the class that you're in, and it's very low class, and you're never going to rise up in classes, which of course can be another connection where you might be someone that is triggered when it comes to classes. Like you might be very aware or very acutely aware of where you are in the hierarchy of whatever system you're part of, right? Whether it's being like, you know, middle class versus high class, or lower middle class versus upper middle class, like the little tiny differences. Or if it's, let's say, like you have a kid and, you know, there's like the school and the moms at school and how it can be kind of like cutthroat with that. You just might be very aware of your place in the system, like in the system of life, you know what I mean? Or you're very aware of people's places, like it's just something you've always been like attuned to. If that's the case, it could stem from here. A direct connection though from here would be also that it would be opposite, where you just don't give a hoot, like you don't care at all about the systems, about hierarchy. You're just like, screw it, like I'll do what I want, I don't care. Just that kind of thing. That would be more of a direct connection. So keep that in mind. Also, something about it could be like you might have a really good green thumb. You know, something simple like that, where you have a green thumb because we're growing things here. You might be very attuned to the land. You might feel like you might like walking barefoot on the ground. You feel like you connect with land. Again, that mountain is, I feel like it's coming up somewhere here. There's gonna be there's already images coming through, so we'll get to that. But I'm talking a lot about this, sorry. But I feel like there's something else about it. Authority figures. Issues with authority figures. If you are like, I do not want to have a boss, I want to be my own boss, that kind of thing. So let's say if you have a career right now, if you have a job, whatever it is, and you're having issues with it, It could be that your soul is just really like, I don't want to work for other people, I want to work for myself. And so if you're considering doing something else in your life, career-wise or jobs, if you're going to get one or change it, I would definitely recommend that you do something where you are your own boss. Like entrepreneurship kind of stuff, like start your own business or do your own thing, or a partnership, or just something where you don't have to be micromanaged, because this person definitely was. Also, this person was not able to stand out in any way. This person wasn't able to get ahead in any way. It was just everyone that worked here, they were just on the same page with everyone else. So you might be someone in this life who really tries to show who you are in different ways. I mean, it could be at work, or it could be in a relationship, or it could just be your actions in the day, or maybe what you post online, whatever it is. If you find that you're someone that feels like you need attention, and that's not bad. It's just, some people need a lot of attention, and that's okay. But if you're someone that finds that you are rather like needy in that sense, again, these words needy usually has a negative connotation, but that's not what I'm going for here. But if you feel like you are needy in that sense, where you kind of want the world to see you in a sense, it would come from this life where you weren't seen at all. On the other hand, you might be someone who likes to be behind the camera instead of in front of the camera, because, again, the direct connection would come from this. So keep that in mind and keep making connections where you can. So the first important day here, this is the war card. And it can mean internal war, it can mean external war, it can mean a battle, it can just mean a little fight, but we're seeing the war card. And the relationship we're seeing with this card is spouse. So spouse, it doesn't necessarily mean we're looking at your spouse here, but it could. And then the feelings involved is pride. And it's really lovely, because what we're seeing on this day, what I feel is coming through, is where we're getting that mountain too, is there is something about, okay, so like I said, you're not slaves, but there's a regime that's in charge. So this regime, and you might want to Google this actually, if you can, like try to Google, we're looking at like that mid 18th century-ish time, where there's a regime in China where they're utilizing the common people to do things for them, as far as working for them, but like not really working. It's like they had to work for them. So maybe see if there's anything like that. Anyway, because it feels like what we're looking at is the spouse card is talking about you and a partner, and I feel like you do have a partner here, and I feel like what's happening is you two are part of a sect of the people who are banding together, and basically there's something about a plan formulating to fight back. And I feel like we're looking at like this, and where the mountain comes in, I feel like is the retreat area. So I feel like the mountain is where you guys go on your like free day, or you sneak off at night, or there are hours where you go away, and everybody that's ready or wanting to kind of fight against this regime in power goes and meets at this secret place at the mountain. And it's almost like there's a fort and there's a hideaway. It's almost like, it's coming, that movie, have you ever seen the movie Pan's Labyrinth? If you see the movie Pan's Labyrinth, it's very similar. What they're showing me is where there's a regime in charge, and they hold the key to all the food in the land, and all of the monies and the goods and the materials and the animal. And then there's the people that are out in the woods that are fighting the regime, and they'll do little attacks to make it really hard on the regime, like more of a big annoyance than anything, but they still like tried to do whatever it is they can to just make it harder on these people that are trying to like basically own them or rule over them. And that's what we're getting here. And I'm trying to see what this day is, because I feel like this day there is something special, almost like a plan has been brewing, and on this day action is taken. And there's something about your partner here is almost like one of the leaders of this sect, or the main leader. And there's something about being very prideful and seeing your partner just having such a large part in being a voice and being like the action behind the people, like such a voice for the people. And so you might connect with this in a way where you care very much about the people, the rights of the people. You're a voice of the people. You might be someone that's very liberal, a feminist, that kind of thing, where you want to see the quote-unquote underdog kind of rise up and claim their victory finally. Or stories where the underdog does rise up might trigger you, you know, just those underdog. You might be just someone who really fights for the underdog, I guess is what I'm saying. Also, this could also be something that you look for in a partner. So in your partner, there might be qualities where your partner is like a man of the people, or helps the underdog, or has a very what's the word, like compassion. It's about compassion, but not about weakness either. Like, just because, you know, a grown man cares about, you know, children growing up safely doesn't mean that, you know, he's any less masculine, you know, that kind of thing, where people are like, oh, that's weak. Well, no, it's like, it's a really lovely quality, and that could be a really big, like one of your biggest things when it comes to your partner is a gentler, compassionate side. And I say gentler even though we see a what's it called? Your partner here is like a fighter in a sense, but he's fighting for a cause. So there's compassion and passion behind that. And again, when it comes to not just your partner, but also maybe people you surround yourself with, like your very good friends or whatever, you want to see people who make the right decisions, who maybe even make hard decisions as long as they're the right thing to do, people who stand up for people, people who give others a voice that don't know how to have a voice of their own, people who fight for a cause, fight for the right cause, that kind of thing. Very compassionate people. So that pride comes in, and usually, you know, pride can be a ass kicker, but in this sense, it's pride in like what is being done for your people, like almost like, it's almost like these people are being like their dignity is almost gone. And here, in this way, the dignity is being brought back to your kinspeople, like your family and the people you've grown up with. Like, these are everyone in the town is basically like a family. So that's what's happening, is like the dignity is being brought back, and you're really seeing this huge perspective of what's going on, this big picture of what's going on. And that in itself is like a big day, because it's like the first time you're seeing action being taken against like the bad guy. It's almost like you're seeing like this huge thing play out. It's like something you thought you would never see, and it's happening. And so that's this day here. So keep making connections where you can based off what I'm telling you to regarding with what we're seeing here. Now, next important day. So this feels like it's later on, years later, and it feels like there's something like not total victory having happened here, but enough victory where there has been change. So I feel like you've also gotten help from external forces after this. Like, it's almost like if some kind of bomb was like went off and it was so big that it attracted other like other villages or other places, or word got around and it brought in allies. And I feel like over the time you brought in allies, and the allies, basically it was a force versus these forces. So it feels like like almost like things ensued between this day and this day. Things happened where great changes were made, to the point where it's like you're in the same area, but the regime has lost a lot of its power, and life is a lot better, even though there's something about not having total freedom, because something about this regime still, like, there's something about like again, the survival thing. Like, it's almost like they own the land, so you still have to like maybe even like something like paying taxes or something. I don't know. Basically, it's like this thing where it's like you're still owing this regime something. It's almost like you're paying them for your freedom. There. That's what it feels like. Whew, okay, that was a lot of words for a little thing. It just feels like you're paying taxes for your freedom. There you go. So we get to this day, and it does feel more free. It feels like there's been, as far as living situation has been completely different. It's almost like everyone kind of rebuilt the village as it was, where it was, and it even expanded again to this mountain. I feel like this mountain is part of the village now, because of what a great sanctuary it was. And it also feels like the people, as far as like what they worship or what they like, it's almost like they understand that nature in itself is an entity, and so there's something about paying respects to the mountain by including the mountain in their newly formed village. I don't know if like, what is it, Buddhism or whatever they practice there does that, but there's something about like paying respects to the mountain. So keep that in mind too. You also might have a connection where it comes where you might feel like nature itself is like a living, breathing entity. Like you can almost feel it. Maybe you feel it, like you might be someone that like says hello to a tree. And that's completely fine, and that's great, and if not, that's fine too. But that could also be coming up just to let you know that you do have a connection with nature that is very special, even if you don't feel it. And it could be coming up at this time because it might be time for you to actually try to dive into that a little bit. Maybe go out into nature and ground yourself and walk barefoot, or touch a tree and say hello to the sky or the mountain or the earth. You know what I mean? See how that feels on you when you try it, if you don't do that already. You know what I mean? Because when you get messages about when it comes like to nature and bonding with nature, that's really helpful. That means that it's like a step, like something's coming, like you're stepping into something that's going to be very interesting for you in your life in regards to like soul growth, understanding things more, gaining perspective, expanding your soul. There's a lot that comes with messages having to do with learning to bond with nature or to reach out to nature. So keep that in mind. But anyway, let's get to this day already. Whew. So here we're seeing a birth. And right here we're seeing a child card for the relationship, which I guess makes sense because you need to go through one to get to the other. And this feeling here is kind of like melancholy. And what's happening here is we're seeing a birth of your second child. So you already have a child. I feel like you're giving birth to a second child. And there's something about the process of birth that is making you hesitant, and I think it had to do with having your first child. I feel like we're looking at someone who went through a really hard labor, really hard labor, like almost died kind of labor. And so I feel like there's a lot of like, it's almost like you're numbing your mind out. You're putting up walls emotionally to the people that you love and that love you. You're like numbing yourself out. It's almost like you're preparing to die because of what happened last time. And you love your child and you love your family and you're still with that same partner and everything is great, except now as time is coming for you to give birth again, we're finding you putting up walls and numbing yourself emotionally. You're not letting anyone in. You're not listening to anybody's, like you'll listen, but you'll just like kind of like nod politely. Like, okay, yeah, okay, sure, because you just in your head, it's almost like you've resolved that you're going to die during this birth based on what it was last time. So how you can connect with that is a couple of ways. Is one, you could be someone who doesn't want children, because it could be the birthing process. Or it could just be that you with the hardship you had here, your soul came back into this life not wanting to bear children naturally. So if you've had any issues as far as miscarriages or problems getting pregnant, like it's not easy or hesitant to do so or not wanting children, that kind of thing, it could very well come from this. On the other hand, it could be completely opposite again, because we are seeing a mother here who is a good mother who loves her children and who ended up giving birth fine. The second time, it was much easier, came out great, and it was totally fine. So we could see you again with the direct connection, if you do want children, and or if you're worried about, being a good mother or whatever it is, you don't have to worry because you already were. So when you already were something and you already were something in a past life, you can always tap back into that energy. And here you were a very good mother. So if you ever have any doubts about that, if you do have children and you have doubts about mothership, motherhood, whatever it is, you just need to remember you already did it and you did it very well. You can do it again, that kind of thing. And if it's the other way around where you don't want children or you're having a hard time conceiving or whatever it is, again, it would be the opposite of where you went through so much trauma here, emotionally too, and physically, that your soul in this life wants to just give you a break, like you just want a break, that kind of thing, and you just want to chill out from that route, if that makes sense, or maybe adopt or something like that will give your body more ease. So keep that in mind as far as connections go, all right? And keep making connections where you can. But I do want to mention the second thing I wanted to mention here was the walls you put up and the numbing. So what this can mean in your current life is that you might be someone who doesn't really know how to really articulate when you're feeling very flustered or when you're really in fear mode or you're scared about something or whatever. You might have trouble talking to people. You might have trouble opening up. You might be someone that does put up walls. Or you might be someone that puts up walls not just to other people, but even to your own self, like where you won't admit certain things. You might put yourself like in a denial mode of certain things because you don't want to feel how deeply those things really are and how scary things can be in order to get to the other end of that decision-making process, And if that's the case, this is coming up just to let you know that because the birth went very well that second time, this is coming up as a message that you don't have to do that. If that's what you do, you don't have to do that anymore. It's not going to help. It's something that's there that doesn't need to be there. It's a false block. So if you're someone that does put up walls emotionally, or you have trouble articulating your, how you're feeling or whatever it is, you have to see that when you do that, it's false. It's not real. It's like a soul memory that you can make a choice to get out of the pattern of, if that makes sense. Also, on that note, you could be someone who, opposite effect, you might just be someone that's able to really super articulate what's going on, and you might be someone who actually sees the walls that others put up, and you might be really good at helping pull the walls down on other people where they're putting stuff up emotionally. You might be someone that's very good at getting through those walls and getting people to talk about how they feel because you went through it yourself and you understood why you did it, and then you saw that there was no true reason why you did it, because in the end the thing you feared most did not happen. And also, this is a message when it comes to fear, is that the things that you fear or that you worry about, this is a message coming up a lot lately, by the way. The things you fear and that you worry about are your biggest obstacles. They are huge. Fears and worries are huge obstacles that don't need to be there, because when you fear something or you worry about something, you're worrying about something that has not come to pass yet, meaning you're putting your mind in the future instead of being present. And when you're present, that's when you find all your solutions. That's when you get all the answers, is when you're able to be present. But when you're worrying and you're in fear mode, you are placing yourself in a future that's uncertain. Not only that, but the more you worry something will happen, the more you are kind of manifesting that energy as well. So you want to back away from that. You want to learn how to transcend the fear, to turn it into something else. What I like to say is turn fear into curiosity. Try doing that. Or worry, just recognize it. As soon as you start to worry about something, it's a great practice to recognize, oh, okay, I'm worrying again. I'm not present. I'm placing my mind in the future, in a future that hasn't even happened yet. Let's not put my creative energy behind that. Let's not put my energy behind that worry. So I feel like that is also coming up for you too, that if there is anything that you find that you're worrying about, take yourself out of that and come back to the present moment and focus on what's right in front of you and it will help you feel better, and it will also present solutions to you, okay? So keep that in mind if that connects to you as well, and keep making connections. Now, what's nice is, this is really interesting. So I put the deck down before I laid out the death card, which is interesting because I've never done that before. And so the reading isn't just about what's on the cards. You know, this reading is always it's about what happens beforehand and during, when I'm placing the cards. Like, I pay attention to everything. And so I've never done that before. And I thought, you know, before I pulled this card, I thought, oh, well, maybe because it doesn't matter. Maybe I didn't pull it because it really doesn't matter. So the card that comes up first is the natural death card. Nothing happened. You died in your sleep. Like, it's the most easy, natural, perfect death anyone could want. It's like you died much older, peacefully, in your sleep. And there's nothing more to say. You know, there's nothing I can pull out of this. So I just found that very interesting. Now, what's nice is the lesson. This lesson is the work. Basically, it says right here, I work all night, I work all day. And it's so funny because we're looking at this lifetime here where you are working all the time. And it's not just that you're being made to work by other people over here, but don't forget, once this passed by and things got even better, now you're working on raising a family and worrying so much and in so much fear about giving birth, and you know, just the whole, like, being a woman at this point in time. And so there's nonstop work in this life. So in your current life, this message would be coming up to tell you you've already exhausted yourself in this life. You've been exhausted. You have worked to the bone. Yeah, there's some happy moments, but you work so much that in your current life, if you find that you overwork or overanalyze things or over worry, or you feel like you need to keep busy, you need to constantly keep yourself busy, or you know, that kind of thing, like you always have to have something scheduled, this message would be coming up to tell you to take a break. Make sure you give yourself time for you, time to be quiet, time to be with yourself, time, I mean, yes, of course, like date night and, you know, have fun with the ones you love, but also really for yourself, where you don't have to be a label, where you don't have to be a wife, a mother, a sister, a daughter, a friend, whatever your career, you know, whatever you do. Like, you don't have to have a label, you don't have to have a title. You need time where you are just you. You're just yourself, and nobody is expecting anything. You're not expecting anything of yourself. You're not on a timeline. I feel like it's very important that this is coming up for that reason. And that's all. I mean, I just feel like that's a really big thing, is this was shown to you because you were, in a sense, like worked to the bone, so don't do it again. And if you do feel like you have to keep busy, it only stems from this life where you had to keep busy. So if you feel like there's an urge to keep busy, it could be not only left over from here, but also currently it could be a little lesson or opportunity of a kind of test for you to learn to, like, just chill out, like just relax. On the other hand, it can also be a lovely little lesson where if you find that in this current life you always relax, you know, here's the opposite thing. If you're always relaxing, or if you're always wanting a break, or you feel overworked and you're constantly wanting time alone, and you like to kind of stay in the house and just veg out or whatever it is, not to be hard on yourself. Like, if you might feel guilty for, maybe you do have like a really nice, easy life this time around versus this. Don't feel guilty about it, and relish in it, and be grateful for it, and be happy with it, because it's being given to you because of how hard this life was here. So it's always, we always see, like, you're not going to work to the bone all your lifetimes. Some lives, some souls, they have it nice and easy and relaxed, and it's because they're recuperating from having it hard before. You know what I mean? So there are different ways you can be seeing this message and looking at this. So I hope you keep making connections, okay? Wherever you can. And so there's your past life, and thanks for letting me read you, and I hope you have a great day.